And today, the Supreme Court has answered that question by a vote of 6-3.
The U.S. Supreme Court has just issued a major ruling.
Major Second Amendment case.
Major Supreme Court ruling.
Imagine a system where your driver's license only worked in your home state, and the second you crossed the border, you were driving illegally. It sounds ridiculous, right? But that is exactly how our concealed carry laws work today. One minute you are a law-abiding citizen, and the next you are risking a felony charge for doing absolutely nothing wrong except entering another state. This is the reality of the interstate trap, and it has claimed the lives and careers of far too many responsible Americans. But there is a massive shift happening right now. H.R. 38, the Constitutional Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act, is designed to put an end to this confusion once and for all. If it becomes law, your home state's permit would be recognized in every other state that allows concealed carry. Just like your driver's license works nationwide, your carry permit would finally follow you wherever you go. No more checking reciprocity maps, no more worrying whether Pennsylvania accepts your Florida permit, no more fear that a simple stop for gas in another state could lead to an arrest. This change brings a level of clarity and freedom that we haven't seen in the modern era. Whether you're taking a weekend trip with the family, delivering goods across state lines for work, or simply commuting, your permit stays valid the entire way. Look at the real-world cases of people like David McCoy and Jeffrey Johnson. Both were professional truckers. Both were responsible, law-abiding men who had valid permits from Texas and Florida. But because their roots took them through states like Minnesota, where their permits weren't recognized, they were left legally exposed just for doing their jobs. They were treated like criminals for exercising a right that was perfectly legal just a few miles back down the road. Under H.R. 38, that risk disappears. Their home state approval would protect them across the country, ensuring that your constitutional rights don't have an expiration date based on your GPS coordinates. And for those of you living in a constitutional carry state, this update is truly life-changing. Right now, over half of the country, nearly 30 states, allows law-abiding citizens to carry a concealed firearm without needing a government-issued permit. States like Texas, Alabama, and Tennessee trust their residents to exercise that right freely. But the moment you cross into a state that still requires a permit, that freedom vanishes. And with it, your legal protection. This puts millions of people in a no-win situation. You either have to spend money and time getting a permit you don't even need at home, or you have to take the legal gamble of traveling without one. For some, that gamble has ended in jail time. H.R. 38 changes the game. Under this rule, if you are legally allowed to carry in your home state without a permit, that status follows you across the state lines. As long as you aren't federally prohibited, you're covered. No more second-guessing your travel plans or sacrificing your safety at the state border. This isn't just about convenience. It's about restoring a basic right that should have never been tied to geography in the first place. If you've ever been pulled over while carrying in another state, you know the tension. You're calm, you're respectful, and you hand over your license and your permit. But sometimes, the officer gives you a look like they've never seen that document before. Then come the questions, the confusion, and sometimes things go downhill fast. There have been cases where officers flat out refuse to accept out-of-state permits, claiming their department doesn't honor them. Suddenly, a routine traffic stop turns into a legal nightmare. H.R. 38 ends that nonsense. Your permit becomes a recognized legal document in every single state. Law enforcement must treat it as proof. No debates, no confusion, and no excuses. This sets a clear national standard. But H.R. 38 goes even further. For years, the system worked backward. If a state questioned your permit, you were the one forced to prove your innocence. You had to show training records and verify your residency before you were even charged. H.R. 38 flips that power dynamic. Now, if a prosecutor wants to come after you, the burden is on them. They must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you did not meet the legal requirements to carry. Guesses and assumptions are no longer enough. They need real evidence. Think about the case of Shaneen Allen, a mother from Pennsylvania. She was a legal carrier back home, but during a stop in New Jersey, she was arrested and spent 40 days in jail, facing a mandatory 3-year sentence. She broke no law in her own state, but she was treated like a dangerous criminal. If H.R. 38 had been in effect, New Jersey would have been forced to prove she was outside the law, and they couldn't have done it. The burden now falls on the government, not the citizen. And here is where the accountability really kicks in. In the past, even if the police made a mistake and arrested you for carrying legally, you were the one stuck paying the price. You had to pay for the lawyers, the court costs, and you suffered the damage to your reputation. The system punished the innocent. Under H.R. 38, if law enforcement wrongly arrests you while you're carrying legally, that agency is now responsible for every penny of your legal expenses. And if your rights were clearly violated, you can sue for actual damages. Real money and real accountability. That kind of financial pressure forces departments to take the law seriously and train their officers properly. It makes them think twice before putting handcuffs on a law-abiding citizen. This is about responsibility, and now it's built into the law. This fix also addresses what's been called the felony trap. You can leave home fully legal, but after a few hours on the road, crossing into a state like New Jersey can suddenly turn you into a felon. Nothing about your behavior changed, but the welcome sign on the highway just turned you into a criminal. South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson called this system outrageous, and he is right. In early 2025, 24 attorneys general joined together to tell Congress that this patchwork of laws is unacceptable. H.R. 38 shuts that trap. Once passed, your legal status stays with you. States can no longer use invisible borders to punish gun owners. Now, it's important to understand that H.R. 38 still respects boundaries. It doesn't mean you can carry a firearm anywhere you want. Private property rights are still fully protected. If a store or a restaurant has a clear no firearms sign, you have to respect that. The same goes for government buildings like courthouses. States can still decide where firearms are allowed in their own public spaces. What H.R. 38 does is stop the abuse of these laws. It prevents states from using property laws as a loophole to create sneaky citywide bans that trap travelers. It brings transparency to the system, so you know exactly where you can and cannot go. It strikes the balance we've needed for years, respecting the Second Amendment while preserving the rights of property owners. We also have to be clear about federal law. H.R. 38 does not override federal restrictions. Places like post offices and federal courthouses remain off limits. The bill doesn't weaken the Federal Gun-Free School Zones Act either. Federal authority stays intact. This distinction is important because it prevents carriers from assuming that reciprocity means anywhere. You still need to stay aware of federal locations, but you no longer have to worry about the confusing maze of state-by-state recognition. It's about removing the chaos at the state level without blurring the lines of federal law. At its core, H.R. 38 is about respect. It doesn't force states to change how they issue their own permits. If a state wants to require live fire training for its own residents, it still can, but it must respect the permits issued by other states. It's exactly like how we handle marriage licenses or driver's licenses. We don't make you get a new marriage license every time you move, and we don't make you take a new driving test every time you cross into a new state. This bill finally treats the Second Amendment with the same level of respect. It ends decades of confusion, stress, and legal risk. Your permit becomes a real credential, valid across the entire country. This final push for reciprocity is built on a foundation of American history. The right to carry while traveling has been recognized for over a century, back to a time when travel was dangerous and self-defense was a necessity. In recent years, the Supreme Court has reaffirmed these principles in landmark cases like Bruin and Rahimi. The court has made it clear that law-abiding citizens have a fundamental right to carry in public for self-defense. H.R. 38 simply builds on those rulings, ensuring that your rights don't vanish at the border. These changes represent a long overdue correction to a system that has been broken for far too long. It's about more than just crossing state lines. It's about carrying your rights with you wherever you go. It's about making sure that those who follow the law aren't treated like criminals by those who want to ignore the Constitution. We are moving toward a future where the law is uniform, predictable, and fair for every American. If you want to stay informed as H.R. 38 moves forward, make sure you're subscribed to gun law updates and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a critical update. We're going to keep breaking down what these changes mean for your everyday life and your freedom. Drop a comment and let us know, which of these rules do you think is the most important for gun owners today? I read every one of them. Your knowledge is your power, and by staying informed, you'll always stay one step ahead. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.